The encounter between Muslims and Vikings is one of the most fascinating and dynamic chapters in medieval global history. Between the 8th and 11th centuries, Norse seafarers, known for their raids, explorations and vast trading networks, came into contact with the Islamic world in multiple regions: Al-Andalus, North Africa, Sicily, the Eastern Mediterranean, and most significantly the Abbasid Caliphate through the Volga trade routes. These cross-cultural interactions were not limited to warfare or raiding. They also included trade, diplomacy, cultural exchange, and even conversion. While commonly overshadowed by narratives of Viking raids in Western Europe, the contact between the Norse and the Muslim world was arguably more extensive, sophisticated, and influential. The Muslim world at the time represented one of the most advanced civilizations on Earth, with flourishing cities, universities, a stable economy, and a vast interconnected trade system. The Vikings were deeply attracted to this world, not only for its wealth but also for its knowledge, science, social structure, and faith. Over the centuries, these encounters created moments where Vikings adopted Islamic customs, engaged in commerce with Muslim merchants, lived within Muslim lands, and although rare, some eventually embraced Islam. The Vikings first directly encountered Muslims during their raids on Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain. In 844 CE, a large Viking fleet attacked Seville when it was under the Umayyad Emirate of Córdoba. The Muslim chroniclers described the invaders as al-Majus, fire worshippers, a term used for pagan foreigners. The Arab forces successfully repelled the attack, and many Vikings were captured or killed. Despite this violent first encounter, the Andalusians quickly recognized the commercial potential of dealing with Norse traders. The Vikings, impressed by the advanced architecture, governance, and wealth of Islamic Spain, began engaging peacefully with the region. Muslim coins, dirhams, found in Viking Scandinavia, especially in Sweden, demonstrate active trade routes with the Islamic world. Over 100,000 Islamic silver coins have been discovered in Scandinavia, an astonishing number that reveals far more trade than warfare. The Mediterranean also served as a meeting point. Vikings raided parts of North Africa, but also settled in Sicily and southern Italy, regions that had strong Muslim presences. These interactions added to the cultural and economic exchange, introducing the Norse to textiles, metalwork, spices, and scientific knowledge. The most significant Muslim-Viking interactions occurred through the Volga trade routes, where the Rus-Norse traders who settled in modern Russia and Ukraine travelled down the river systems toward the Caspian Sea and the Abbasid Caliphate. The Abbasid Caliphate, 750 to 1258 CE, was the wealthiest empire of the time, with cities such as Baghdad, Samarra, and Basra serving as global centres of science, philosophy, medicine, and commerce. Vikings who reached these regions were overwhelmed by the sophistication of Islamic civilization. Many Viking traders settled temporarily or permanently in territories influenced by Islam, some serving as mercenaries, bodyguards, or merchant intermediaries. The Abbasid dinar and dirham became prized currencies in the Viking world because of their purity and stability. Norse economies were transformed in part by this influx of Islamic silver. The most detailed account of Muslim-Viking contact comes from Ahmad ibn Fadlan, a 10th century envoy of the Abbasid Caliph who encountered the Rus in 902 CE along the Volga River. His writings provide an extraordinary ethnographic description of the Norse people. Ibn Fadlan describes the Vikings as tall, physically strong, and heavily tattooed. He noted their practices in trade, hygiene, social customs, and religion. His famous description of the Viking funeral, where a slave girl was sacrificed and burned with a chieftain, remains one of the most vivid medieval ethnographies. Although he criticized the pagan aspects of Norse ritual, Ibn Fadlan also admired their honesty in business and the respect they had among themselves. His account shows that the Norse were deeply engaged with Muslim traders, and many lived in proximity to Islamic communities along the Volga. Although conversions were not widespread, there is clear evidence that some Vikings did embrace Islam. This happened in several ways, as Viking merchants settled in Muslim-controlled trading posts or travelled repeatedly through Islamic territories. Some adopted local customs and, in a few cases, Islamic beliefs. Conversion facilitated easier trade, marriage, and legal integration. A surprising number of Islamic coins found in Sweden, especially on Gotland, have been modified into pendants, jewellery, or amulets. Some coins bear inscriptions such as the Shahada, "There is no God but Allah," which suggests that the words carried spiritual significance for their Viking owners. Archaeologists argue that some Norse individuals found meaning in Islamic monotheism, especially as Scandinavia was already transitioning away from Norse paganism. There is evidence of Norse individuals with Arabic or Islamic-inspired names. Scandinavian sources refer to individuals such as Yusuf the Rus and Ibrahim ibn Yaqub al-Tartushi, a Jewish traveller from Al-Andalus who encountered Norse communities and recorded instances of cultural blending. Several historians discuss the possibility that certain Viking-descended rulers in the Volga-Bulgar region converted to Islam after settling among Muslim Bulgars. Their descendants maintained Islamic identity for generations. The Islamic world was, by far, more technologically and culturally advanced than the societies of Northern Europe at the time. Vikings encountering the elegance of Islamic cities, the fairness of Islamic law, and the unity of monotheism may have been moved intellectually and spiritually. By the time of their deeper interactions with Muslims, the Norse world was already exposed to Christianity. Monotheism was no longer entirely foreign, making conversion to Islam more plausible. The presence of Muslim traders, scholars, and diplomats along the Volga and Caspian routes exposed many Vikings to Islamic teachings. The respectful yet firm approach of travellers such as Ibn Fadlan likely left an impression. Even when conversion did not occur, Viking-Muslim contact left deep marks on Norse culture. Many Viking textile patterns show clear influences from Islamic geometric art. Fragments of silk from Baghdad and Central Asia have been found in Viking graves. Arabesque designs, Kufic-style inscriptions, and Islamic artistic motifs appear on Viking weaponry, jewellery and clothing. Some Viking swords bear fake Arabic inscriptions, suggesting that Islamic craftsmanship was considered high prestige. Muslim advances in astronomy and navigation indirectly influenced Viking seafaring through intercultural exchange with Eastern traders. In Ibn Fadlan's writings, he notes that some Rus adopted Muslim customs such as cleanliness after using the restroom or washing before prayer-like rituals. These were likely early stages of cultural assimilation. Several groups of Vikings settled or operated within Muslim territories. Some Viking war bands raided along the Caspian Sea, attacking Muslim settlements, but also eventually integrating and settling in some regions. While the Varangian Guard is most known for serving in the Byzantine Empire, there is evidence that Norse mercenaries also entered the service of Muslim rulers, especially in the Caucasus and Central Asia. Archaeological and written sources confirm that Norse merchants lived in Muslim-controlled trading hubs, leading to intermarriage and assimilation. The interactions between Muslims and Vikings reshaped both civilizations in subtle yet profound ways. The Islamic silver economy helped build early Scandinavian towns such as Birka and Hedeby. Material wealth from Muslim lands played a key role in the rise of Viking Age power structures. The Vikings brought home not just wealth but knowledge, new technologies, artistic styles, and even early exposure to monotheistic ideas. The fact that some Vikings embraced Islam reveals the permeability of cultural and religious boundaries. It challenges the simplistic stereotype of Vikings as purely raiders, showing them instead as global travellers and participants in a multicultural medieval world. Through their contact with Muslims, Vikings served as intermediaries between Northern Europe and the Islamic world. This exchange contributed to the development of medieval trade networks and laid the groundwork for later European engagement with Islamic civilization.